Most Americans prepare for the dark, but in Canada, a winter blackout means you have just 3 hours before the cold tries to kill you. Generations here have learned you cannot survive February on canned beans and flashlights alone. The 7 essentials they secretly stockpile, largely ignored south of the border, are the difference between life and a silent, freezing death. Why do so few ever talk about them? Let's find out. Harold wakes before dawn on the first cold snap of October. He moves straight to the propane tank, flashlight in hand, breath visible in the air. In rural Canada, this ritual is as routine as stacking firewood. Propane is the lifeline when the grid fails, but it is also a silent threat. One cracked regulator or a blocked vent can fill a home with carbon monoxide in minutes. Every year, families quietly replace rubber diaphragms and check for brittle seals because in -40, a regulator frozen with moisture means no heat, and a leak means you might not wake up. Battery-powered carbon monoxide detectors sit beside every sleeping area, their test buttons pressed as religiously as the morning coffee is brewed. Unlike in the US, where backup heat is often an afterthought, Canadians pair every portable heater with a detector. No exceptions. The warning labels on propane cylinders are not just legal fine print, they are survival instructions. Ventilation paths are planned before winter hits. Snowdrifts can bury exhaust hoods, so vents are cleared daily. And every heater gets 3 feet of breathing room. The propane itself can sit for years without losing potency, but the system around it is fragile. Regulators are swapped out every autumn, hoses checked for cracks, and fittings tightened by hand. No one trusts a single fuel source. Wood piles stand ready in case a tree blocks the delivery route or a regulator fails. The splitting maul is as important as the generator. In the deep cold, redundancy is not a luxury. It is the line between warmth and a silent, invisible killer. Aisha crouches beside a stack of blue, high-density polyethylene water containers, her breath clouding in the unheated mudroom. Each jug sits half an inch below the cap, leaving space for water's 9% expansion when it freezes. Standard plastic bottles, the kind Americans buy by the case, are missing because those split and leak in the first hard freeze. In Canada, water storage is a science. Insulated camping barrels line the basement, tucked close to the furnace room wall for a trace of warmth. These containers survive when garage-stored jugs explode, flooding floors and wasting precious reserves. A manual gravity pump sits ready, its handles stiff in the cold. When the power fails, electric well pumps are dead weight. Gravity-fed systems rigged with siphon hoses or simple hand pumps guarantee water flows even when the grid is silent. Aisha demonstrates filling a kettle for tea with nothing but a few pulls, no batteries, no motors, just a backup plan that works every time. Gravity keeps a household running when everything else stops. Prescription bottles, each labelled with a rotation date, fill a shoebox in the pantry. Canadian doctors, familiar with winter isolation, write vacation supply scripts for 3-month buffers. Every few weeks, Aisha checks for expiration, swapping older pills to the front. Cold swings inside the house can degrade potency, so the supply is never left to chance. Electrolyte packets and antibiotics, when prescribed, round out the kit. In a storm, roads may close for days, but with heated water and a full medicine buffer, residents stay functional, waiting out the thaw instead of risking the cold. Aisha stands at the window, hands pressed against the glass. Even with the furnace running, a thin layer of frost creeps along the edges. In a Canadian blackout, heat escapes fastest through panes and cracks, sometimes faster than it can be replaced. That is why, before the first storm, foil-backed foam panels are cut to size and pressed into every window frame. Reflectics and similar barriers reflect up to 80% of radiant heat back into the room, turning a drafty house into a survival shelter for less than the cost of a weekly grocery run. Plastic sheeting is not just for emergencies. The 2-layer system, one permanent and one removable, creates a pocket of trapped air, slowing heat loss by another third. On the coldest nights, the difference is obvious. Ice forms on the outside layer while the inside stays clear. When a window needs to be opened for ventilation, the inner layer peels away in seconds, then seals back with tape. Drafts are the invisible enemy. Even a pencil-thin gap under a door can leak as much heat as an uninsulated window. Door sweeps, weather strips, and expanding foam fill these silent highways for cold air. Studies from Natural Resources Canada show that heat loss through cracks and gaps can outpace losses through glass by a wide margin. In a real blackout, every degree matters. With the windows sealed and the drafts blocked, the house holds its warmth longer, cutting the need for precious propane and wood. It is the kind of low-tech fix that keeps families together through the longest nights while others watch their breath freeze on the pillow. Aisha hauls a blue pail of calcium chloride from the garage, setting it beside a shovel and a heavy canvas bag of sand. The chemistry matters. Rock salt, the American standby, stops working at -25. Calcium chloride keeps melting ice at -40, twice as effective when the cold is at its worst. In northern Canada, it is the only dicer that will not leave you trapped after a blizzard. Every trunk carries a survival kit, traction mats, tow straps, energy bars, candles, and a folding shovel. 5-minute errands can turn into 12-hour ordeals if a car slides into a snowbank and cannot get out. On the prairies, more than 70% of vehicles have these kits, compared to barely a fifth in the northern United States. Battery insulation is another quiet essential. Standard car batteries freeze solid at -30, but an insulated wrap or a battery heater keeps the engine ready to start. Small snowblowers or ploughs clear driveways long before city crews arrive. In a medical emergency, a blocked driveway is not an inconvenience, it is a death sentence. Canadians treat mobility as non-negotiable. Every escape route is prepped and every tool is tested before the first real storm hits. Harold lines up 3 piles on the kitchen table: merino wool, thick fleece, and a crinkling wind-proof shell. Dressing for -40 is not about fashion or even comfort, it is about managing how the body loses heat. The merino base layer pulls sweat away from the skin, keeping it dry even when shoveling drifts or hauling wood. Next comes the fleece, trapping pockets of air close to the body, turning every movement into a source of warmth. Finally, the shell, stiff and silent, locks out wind that would otherwise strip away heat in minutes. He checks his bag for spare mitts, a second balaclava, and liner gloves, because a wet glove at -30 is a ticket to frostbite. Redundancy is not overkill. It is a response to the physics of cold. Moisture kills insulation, and exposed skin loses sensation before pain warns of danger. On the floor, a pair of Sorel Glacier boots waits, rated to -70. In the Canadian winter, heat escapes through the feet first, and even the thickest parka cannot save numb toes. Harold laces up, ready to face the morning, every layer a barrier between his body and the cold that never forgives a mistake. Harold pulls a battered chainsaw from the shed, the bar still flecked with sawdust from last winter's storm. In northern Canada, a blocked driveway isn't just a nuisance, it's a trap. When a tree falls across the only road out, clearing it fast can mean the difference between reaching help or being stranded for days. Ethanol-blended gas, common at US pumps, turns to gel below -30 degrees Celsius, choking carburetors and leaving engines silent. That's why Harold pours only ethanol-free fuel treated with stabilizer into his jerry cans each fall. The oil he uses for the chain is winter grade, thin enough to flow at -30 degrees Celsius, but sticky enough to keep the blade moving. Every part has a backup: spark plugs, bar oil, a fresh chain, and files for sharpening. He stores gloves and a bow saw beside the saw. If the motor fails, the work doesn't stop. For Harold, these aren't just tools. They're the keys to escape when the world outside freezes solid. Every year, Canadian winters test the limits of human preparation. As extreme weather events escalate across North America, the difference between inconvenience and catastrophe is shrinking. Survival now depends on what you ignore or what you quietly prepare for. In the end, the cold won't wait. Share your perspective below.